Hi everyone, so I wanted to give you a quick update on where we are with scene templates. So scene templates are a way of creating new scenes from predetermined templates that you store within your project. We'll also provide templates to you in order to help you get started. In this example, I have a scene where we've created just some primitives and a global volume profile to set up things like post-processing with our universal render pipeline. In this project, you can see that I've got a folder called Scene Templates and 3 different folders within that. Now, this feature is not reliant upon folder structure or anything like that. I'm going to show you how it works. So first thing to know is that when I go to File New with this feature enabled, I get the New Scene dialog. So obviously this is something that we haven't seen before. And in this, I can rescale my view. I can change to a list and I can zoom up. And every template has details. It has a thumbnail and it has a title and description. And it has the ability to locate it or edit it directly from this menu. So for example, if I want to edit my URP, Universal Render Pipeline Post Plus, I would hit the edit button here. That will jump me straight to the asset that controls this template. So let's take a look at how I actually made that. Well, the first thing to know is that the scene template is a new asset type, which basically allows you to specify a scene, in this instance, this scene here. So I make the scene, I then save the scene, and I keep all of my dependencies somewhere sensible. So in this example, my dependencies are just all of these things. And of course, I could make subfolders like materials, textures, etc., and put them in there. But instead, what I've done is just kind of keep them all together. And in this, I've then stored my scene. And then once I was happy with my scene, I've gone to File, Save as Scene Template. And then all that does is just creates a scene template asset for me and assigns the scene itself. So then I just go in and fill in my title and description, and I line up my camera where I want it, and I click Take Snapshot. So you'll notice here that I've renamed my main camera Camera Base because I'm using Cinemachine virtual cameras. So this would normally say main camera and game view if you were just starting out with a new scene. So with this template, what I can then do is go to File New, and I can just choose one of the templates. So I will choose this one. And when I hit Create, it's going to ask me if I want to save my scene. So I was just working on the basic template earlier. And in my scenes folder, I'm now going to save this. So I'll call this, for example, I'm going to call this Will Demo 1. Save that into my scenes folder. And then what it's going to do for me is, first of all, it's going to instance that out. This is just the post effects just preparing. So it saved my scene, so Will Demo 1, and it saved an identically named folder with all of the dependencies. And all the dependencies get remapped. So why is that? So if I go back to the template that I used, which is URP Post Plus, click on the scene template file, you'll notice down here I have a dependencies list. So what the dependencies list does is allows me to specify if I want to clone when this template is used. And typically I don't want to overwrite any of the scene template assets or their dependencies, I should say. So what I actually end up doing is to make sure they're all cloned. That way, whenever I use it, I just get a folder with everything in. So it's going to copy out all of the dependencies that I want. And so now if I go ahead and say, okay, well, I'm going to just play around with this. I'm going to make it super contrasty. What else am I going to do? I'm going to, let's say I crank up the bloom, just make it all a little bit much. And then I hit play, and then my scene plays. And I think, oh yeah, maybe I don't like that. And I decide not to go ahead with that prototype or whatever I was doing with that scene. What I can simply do then is just, I can just delete both of these things. I know that they're named the same thing and I don't need them anymore. Now, obviously, if I hit delete now, Unity's going to be confused because it's currently loaded and freak out a little bit. But that's fine. I can just go ahead and go Command N, new, and then just use something else. So I might use the basic one this time and choose not to save the one that I deleted. So I'll say Demo 2. Save it into my scenes folder, and exactly the same thing will happen there. So I've now got my Demo 2, and I've got all of my assets that were used in that particular one. And so this one is a bit more basic. It's just a simple scene that I made for URP that just has motion blur and a really simple depth of field setup for it. So that's pretty much the process in a nutshell. I'm going to just show you very quickly from scratch what that might look like. So for example, I can start with basic built-in. Now I'm using universal render pipeline. So typically we want people to be using URP basic or URP post because they're set up with that volume profile. But I'm just going to use this to show you what it would look like with absolutely nothing except for the camera and light. So I'm not going to bother saving my demo 2. Although, of course, I saved it when I created it, so it's going to stay there. It's not gone anywhere. But I'm working in a new scene right now. Haven't saved it. It's untitled. So bear in mind that these two options, basic built-in and empty, are created programmatically. They're not something that we store anywhere. So we can create those without asking the user where you want to save those things. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just make a quick scene. So I might put in a plane. And I might say this is going to have a large size to it. And I'm going to put in a capsule because why not? Okay, great. So then I'm going to move my camera in, use Command-Shift-F to reframe it a little more. And okay, that'll do. Then I'm going to place in a global volume for this. And I'm gonna just quickly save my scene somewhere useful. So I'm making a new scene template right now. So I'm gonna call this template demo 3. Gonna just put that into my scene templates folder, and I'm gonna call this capsule thing because that's what it is. It's a capsule thing. And I'm gonna make a new volume profile, which is gonna be stored in the same place where I saved my scene because that's how those work. And I'm going to just add some things to my post-processing. So I might add a little bit of bloom, and I'll make sure that post-processing is enabled on my camera, which is important. And then I'll add in a Cinemachine camera as well. And yeah. So I'm going to just make a couple of dependencies. So I'm going to make that capsule into a prefab, and I'm going to make a material. I'm going to call this green capsule. I'm going to do the obvious, give it a color. Great. And yeah, so that's just something really basic. I might give the ground a material as well, because why not? And make that kind of minty color. And okay, well, that's disgusting enough to the eye, I think already. I've got 3 dependencies now, and I've got my scene file. So as I said earlier, I can go to File, Save as Scene Template, and just so that you're aware, I can also right-click on the scene and go to Create, Scene Template from Scene. That's another way to do it. So you can see here that that's created my scene template, and it's assigned the scene capsule thing. And I'm going to give it the name Capsule Template, simple scene with a capsule and some bloom. Great. And then I'm going to use my main camera to take a snapshot. And that's pretty much it. Everything's going to be cloned. Most asset types are set to clone by default in our logic. And I'm going to pin that. And you'll see pinning in a moment. So that's basically it. I don't need to close this, or I don't need to do anything with it. I can just go to File, New, Command-N, New Scene. And there's my template. So I can unpin that. I can let it filter back. Or I can pin some of these other examples, have them float to the top. But yeah, as soon as I want to use that, I can just do that and click Create, and it's going to go through the same process. Or I can edit it. I can click Edit here, which will jump me straight over here and close the window. Or I can just hit Locate, which will just show me in the project in the background without closing the window where it is. So a couple of different options there. If you're using scene templates to load in a set of data that you want to be loaded additively, you can do that too. There's a little checkbox down here. So if I wanted what I've got here right now with some other stuff, so let's do something silly. So let's create something from the construction scene template. So obviously this has a lot of dependencies. So I'm just going to load it in here. I'm going to call this Will Demo 3. Going to load up everything in the construction scene. Then it's going to load and it's going to bake. And then I might want to load in the other stuff too. So let's say I want to load in my URP post at the same time I'm going to hit load additively and click on create. And it's going to ask me to save this because bear in mind, I am still making another scene to load additively. I'm not loading those assets into the existing scene. So I'm going to call this Will Demo 3 other stuff, something like that. So I saved that scene and its dependencies in there. And it's just going to load them all at the same time and be very, very confusing looking, which is fine. And bear in mind, I've now got 2 scenes loaded, 2 cameras, etc. So obviously I'd need to resolve those confusions, generally speaking. And then I can press play and everything is loaded at the same time because I loaded them additively. And there's the construction scene and some other stuff going on. So that's where we're at with scene templates. This is going to be a package for now. It's going to be by default part of the editor in 2020.2. Anyway, thanks for watching. Enjoy scene templates.